Hello, fourth grade. This is lesson 2 for this week. We're going to look at those pictures again of the landforms and see what we can observe and what might have happened to change the landforms. So when I first look at this picture, I notice that the landform has different layers, and it looks like pieces of it have been smoothed out or fallen off of it or something. I also observe that it is in an area where there is water. Most likely what happened to this area was that the water wore down the rock. It might have been at one time that the water level was actually higher. Since you notice that this goes up a ways, it is possible that the water was higher, and as the water has gotten lower, it has left those lines there. But you can tell that there are smooth areas where rock isn't normally smooth. It's usually going to be kind of bumpy. So the water has impacted this area here. This picture, you'll see these wave patterns, and this is an area that is, it's hard to tell if it's rock or if it's sand, but my guess is that this is caused by wind, that the wind blowing things around, blowing sediment, has rubbed against the surface and made these changes. You don't see this very often naturally, or a landform would not start off looking like this. Something has happened to change it. So this picture we had in our landforms, this is a canyon. And the way canyons are formed is that at one time this would have all been level. This would not have been here. It would have been just a surface in this area straight across. What happens is that there'll be water flowing through this area, and as the water flows through, it's going to wear down the rock. And as it wears down the rock, it's going to wear more and more and more, to the point where you have something like this, where there is a river that's running through it, but it has worn this far down into a mountainous area so that it will continue to actually wear down more. You can see that there's still some rock and stuff that's coming off of these mountains. This could have been caused by a time where there was more rain than usual, or flooding. If this river comes off of a larger body of water and there was more water than normal, it would have pushed more water through, which would have increased how fast it wore down this landform. This is something that you might see in an area where there's mountains, or even where there's some pretty high hills. You can tell that there's a lot of rock here that has fallen in a landslide, and it's actually looks like it's blocking a road. If there is a lot of rain in an area, or perhaps it snows and then the snow melts, that can break down the rocks as well. And when you get all of that breakdown, you're going to eventually have gravity pulling it down. So that is what probably happened in this area. This is an area where it looks like there's more sand. And you can see again different layers that have been worn off. And then this area right here is pretty interesting, because it looks like it used to be a larger mass, and then something has worn it down. So with the sand, I would guess that the winds have blown sand around, and that sand has rubbed against this surface and worn it down. So the landform was changed by the wind blowing the sand. This is a similar example as to the last one, but again, I noticed that there's water. And water can break down rock pretty quick. So where it looks like this might have been something that man did, This is actually something you'll find in several different places on Earth. The water has pushed against it and actually worn it down. The water could be from, it could have been higher at one point, as in that other picture. Could be the wind blowing the water around. But this is all from water changing the landform. Here's another example of a river that has caused the land to change, just as in the canyon. The river, if you remember, I think last year we talked about erosion, and maybe even in second grade we might have gotten to it where we did a lab with the Skittles. As the water flows through that, it actually causes erosion. So what you will see in a river is that as the water's flowing, it will take part of the land here and it'll erode it. And then as it goes around, it deposits it. I don't know if you remember, we had the terms deposition with erosion. So it deposits it. And so that's why you'll see that it is, the river's not as wide there. There's not as much water because as the river winds around, it causes erosion, but then it also deposits more in another area. So a landform can be changed when parts of it are rubbed away from it, but then it can also be changed as more is added in a different area. As more builds up, it's going to stop that water from flowing. So either that water is going to go in a different direction, or maybe there's just not as much water flowing in this area anymore. It's hard to say, but again, not only are you changing the landform here, but you're changing the body of water. You can see here there's actually a sign that says landslide area. This is the same as what we saw before of the picture with the road. You have pieces of rock that are coming down from the winds and the rains breaking the surface down. It causes all of these little pieces to fall. So erosion is caused by wind or water, and that water can either be because it's by a body of water, or it can be from rain and in typical weather that you would have in an area, breaks the surface down, and then it causes small pieces or sediment to be taken off of it. So in your science notebook, in your own words, I want you to write, how does erosion happen? And then I want you to write, how does erosion change landforms? So two separate questions. How does erosion happen? What causes it? And then how does the erosion change what the landform looks like? And then we are going to continue this topic in our next video. As always, if you want to share what you have written down, you can send it to Diana Capel at ops.org. I'd love to hear from you.